Hello and welcome to another Real Blue Drive. Today we are in poor weather detected. So we've got a couple tests going on, just some light rain on a Saturday morning. We're just going to be coming along here. As I've mentioned a couple times now, my daughter is working, has a learner's permit now and working towards that. And part of the study of that notes, and it's well documented that the most dangerous driving weathers is light rain, the first few minutes of rain in particular, because any of the oil on the road in the first couple minutes of rain kind of all comes loose. But we'll be given the full self-driving model a chance to operate supervised in those conditions. So we're going to be going over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. We're picking up my daughter from her grandmother's, and then heading over to Tractor Supply to pick up some sheep feed for the sheep we're pending on picking up tomorrow, getting transferred over to our pasture from our neighbors. And so we need to get some sheep feed, just some treats to keep them happy. And come up here, make this turn. Yeah, it's totally fine there. And yeah, this is definitely the kind of road here where the whole road kind of slants off to the right almost. Barely a curb, big drop off to your right. In the wintertime, this patch right here that we just drove over, water crosses, cross it when it's flowing pretty heavy, and it'll get a big old patch of black ice. And we've driven over it in the Teslas, and it's reminding me again that the poor weather's detected and to be extra alert on the full self-driving. We've driven over it in the Teslas on the black ice, and just the traction control is incredible. We watched as a minivan coming down the road, hit that patch and just spun out, and then we went over it then, going up the road and then coming back down it later in the day, same amount of ice, and just really no problems whatsoever. So it's just another one of those benefits of a Tesla. I was talking to my neighbor about, let's pull up here. We need to definitely make sure we have visibility. This is an interesting pull out. Yeah, made it, but we gotta go. So there is that bit of hesitation, and with the rainy weather, obviously a slower acceleration is fine, but that's a bit of a blind turn there. This road people typically travel 45-50 miles an hour on, and when you're turning out whether right or left or just going straight across there at that stop sign, people can come across. Even when you're turning from this road on this more main road onto that back road, there's definitely, you need to be ready to commit and get going, because people come flying up over that blind hill pretty regularly. And so especially on a rainy morning like today, where stopping's going to be a little hard for the other driver, the Tesla kind of creeping onto the road and doing a slow acceleration really isn't acceptable. So perfectly happy to give that bit of data to the model of, hey, you make that turn, you want to give it a little acceleration. So what's nice is that those aren't disengagements. And why I say that's nice is, I just, to disengage and then re-engage is, an extra step. And really just, sometimes it's just preference, but I do think, in that case, it was worth getting the acceleration going and not waiting for a car to come up over the ridge behind us and find us going, 10, 15 miles an hour, still getting up to speed on a 45-mile-an-hour road. But anyway, I was talking to my neighbor, and we were talking about, just young drivers, new drivers. He's talking about the number of accidents his sons got in their first year of driving. It's pretty staggering. I remember my first year or two of driving, and I stayed clear of any kind of fender benders or anything. I did at one point, driving my parents' minivan, sideswipe my buddy's car. His car was parked, and I was just coming up to a friend's house, kind of making a U-turn at the top of the road. Thought I had more room than I did, and just kind of slid the front right bumper of the minivan along his left door panel. I felt terrible about it, and my parents had me pay for the repair of the bumper with my $5, 15 cent an hour job as a maintenance boy at a local retail store called Bonton. But my buddy, he is very gracious, and I think his car already had a couple dings on it, and he just said, "Don't worry about it." And it was an interesting conversation with my neighbor then about this trade-off of, what type of vehicle is it best to have a student driver in. This morning after I pick up my daughter, before we head over to Tractor Supply, we'll probably head over to a local church first and do a few minutes of practice driving in the parking lot. And but I don't think I'll actually have her too much on the main roads this morning. But she does need to get, in Pennsylvania, you have to do 65 hours of supervised driving, 50 of which can be regular driving. They want a minimum of 5 hours of what they call inclement weather. So, basically at least some sort of, rain, snow, whatever. So, given when her 6 months will be here, we're not going to have any snow, but or at least very unlikely. But we certainly will have a good bit of rain, probably some thunderstorms. So we'll make sure to get her out in some of that, and this is a good opportunity for that. Let's see. It has us in the wrong lane for what it thinks it wants to do. So, okay. It pulled over. I didn't notice. I'll have to go back and watch the footage. I didn't notice its signal for that. So I think we crossed at a white line. We waited too long, and I don't think we signaled. So that's not great. It's good that it got to where it needed to be, and it did so safely. Certainly didn't pull out in front of anyone, but definitely had plenty of time to be in the correct lane before then. So kind of interesting decision there. Interesting, generous. Say, not great driving. Not something I'd be happy to see my daughter do. Let's put it that way. So, anyway, just discussing what are good vehicles, because obviously insurance rates are pretty incredible for Teslas in general. I was very surprised. Unfortunately, Tesla doesn't operate in Pennsylvania, Tesla Insurance. Hope they continue to. Understand, every state's regulated differently. I actually work in the insurance space myself, over on the IT side. And so definitely I understand the complexities of operating insurance state by state, and so the slower rollout, as much as it probably frustrates some Tesla drivers, definitely makes sense. But they do have great, the data is fantastic. I think it's really interesting, some of the insurance companies, when you insure a youthful operator, as they call it, obviously with the kind of stats I was just hearing from my neighbor about, his boys, about himself, all right, full self-driving, you definitely could have gotten across that road a good bit faster. Hearing some of those stats with his boys, it definitely makes sense why the insurance rates go up for for the youthful operator piece. It really is just you're much more prone when you're first learning how to kind of have a sense of your the body that you're kind of inhabiting when you're driving of the car, getting that spatial awareness where it feels second nature, and you kind of naturally have this part of your brain that's aware of, this is the space that the vehicle that I'm operating in takes up on the road. It definitely takes, I think Pennsylvania's 65-hour requirement is a totally reasonable one. It takes a decent amount of time to really get that and have that feel like second nature. I'm not sure at all what the slowdown there was about. We're definitely taking this road easy, which is fine. But yeah, just not sure why Tesla decided to. Hermes said, I'm slowing down there. Don't know. But yeah, so one of the underwriting criteria that they use for youthful operators, in the absence of, any sort of data, since they're new operators to the cars, you can't look at, well, how many accidents have they been in, or traffic violations, that kind of thing. Is they use good grades. It's one of the proxies they use for an underwriting discount. And I think that's interesting, this idea of, and, in insurance, you really can't offer or file some sort of actuarial rate without justification. So what that means is typically what insurance companies will do is they'll start gathering a data point that, maybe they've got a suspicion about, that they've got a hunch, a feeling, this could ultimately prove useful. And so, they started, I guess, gathering essentially, does the youthful operator have good grades? Is this a straight A student? Is this a B student, C student, D student? What? Looking at that as a proxy for essentially responsibility. How responsible is this younger person? And so, luckily, thankfully, my daughter, straight A student, and so able to get that discount. But they had another discount that was, this is interesting given the destination that it's having me turn left here. I wonder where we're headed. I know where I have plugged in that we're headed. We're headed towards Sleepy Hollow, which always cracked me up. That there's a Sleepy Hollow. They're having us come in over Highland, which is a very interesting road, very kind of steep little hill here. So they're definitely old stomping grounds for sure. But yeah, the other discount they have is 30 hours of in-class kind of driver safety. And I remember in school myself having a driver's safety class, but in the case my daughter, she hasn't had that opportunity yet. I'm not sure what that's about. So, and with it coming on to summer, I'll have to figure out something there. All right, well, that's all the further we needed to get. We'll pick back up as we're on our way to Tractor Supply to pick up some sheep feed. All right, thanks for joining.